In today's video, I'm going to take a look at how to install Visual Studio Code on a Linux distribution, how to set it up so that you can build, launch, and of course debug C or C++ programs within it. It's actually incredibly simpler than doing the same thing on Windows. So to start off, usually you want to install the software. So here I am on my Ubuntu software installation thingy, and here I search for code and I can find it. It's pretty easy to install, just hit install. If you're on Ubuntu, if you're on other distributions, I'm not going to go over every single distribution, but it's incredibly simple. Just Google it and it should be straightforward. And one more thing you have to make sure before doing anything with Visual Studio Code and C++ is that you actually have the GCC compiler installed. If I open here a terminal, on Ubuntu it's by default installed, but if you for some reason you don't have it, you just say sudo apt install build essential. And build essential is a sort of meta repository that has all the GCC and its debuggers and all the tools you need to actually compile and run your programs. So if I do edit here, you see I already have it installed. Now, once you have it installed, here, this is basically what you'll get, just a simple screen with nothing on it. Now, it might look a bit more different. The sidebar here on my end is on the right, yours is probably on the left, doesn't really matter. The most important thing that many people actually get wrong on this editor is to actually create a folder, a workspace. Okay, so before anything, you go here and you hit open folder. Okay, you hit open folder, and I have here, for example, a development folder. I'm going to create, let's say, tutorial 3. Okay, just like that. So I'm in here in tutorial 3. I'm going to hit OK, and now I have a proper workspace. So before that, I didn't have a proper workspace, and certain configuration options weren't available for me. Like this, they are now, and you should be able to continue. Now that we have the actual folder and workspace set up, let's create a simple hello world. That's probably straightforward. You've seen this before. We're going to create here a new file. I'm going to say here, I'll first save it as main.c, so that we know that it's a C file. And down here on the right, you're going to notice that Visual Studio Code already notices that, okay, you can install an extension that would help you develop these types of applications. And actually we do want to install this, so you can hit install and it's going to automatically install this extension. If you don't get this recommendation, what you can do is to go here on the extension and simply search for C++, and it is this one that you have to install. Just here, and there should be an install button, and you're done with that. You have the extension, and that extension is going to help you a lot when it comes to auto completion and of course setting up the tasks for building and debugging. We'll get there. Now let's finally create the hello world program that we wanted. All right, there we go. Now, how do we actually build and how do we actually launch this program? Well, first things first, there is a very simple shortcut key in Visual Studio Code, and that is Ctrl-Shift-B. And if you hit that, it's going to try to compile. Now, right now it doesn't have anything set up. It doesn't know where it's at, what languages are you using, and what environment you're at. So it's just going to sort of guess. And here it gives us some options. It's nice. But what I wanted to do when you get to this screen is to hit on this cog. And if you click on this, it's going to create, you might notice there is now a .vs code folder here, and it's going to create a tasks.json up top. And this guy is what tells, what tells VS Code to the compiler how to actually compile the code that we have here. And certain things are important. Namely, we have here the command that's using, so it's looking into USR, bin, and GCC, and that is where our GCC compiler is located. Then we have a lot of important arguments. -G allows us to debug the program, and we're going to see how to do that in a bit. then this is the actual file. This is the current file that you have opened, right? So main.c is going to be the one that we're going to actually compile. And then there's the output. And the output here is the dir name slash the file base name, no extension, is basically this, but without the extension. So instead of main.c, it's just going to be main. And what I like to do here actually is to change this to /b/, so that it actually has a folder. We don't have all the executables in the same folder as the source files. All right, and it's important that you hit right click and create that folder right on the right side here. On the left side probably you are here. All right, now that we have that set up, one more thing we need to change to this is the group here. So it says group build, but what we want is to set it up as default. Why? Because right now, if we go back to the main.c and if we hit Ctrl+Shift+B, you'll notice it still asks us what do we want to do. And I want it to automatically know that, okay, well, I want to debug, I want to build a C file. So what I can do is just remove this part and change it so that we have an object here, just an object saying is default, set that to true, and kind is a build task. Now, if we have this set up, we can simply hit Ctrl+Shift+B and it's going to automatically build it for us. And I think that is amazing. We now have a build executable, and here we can take a look that we have a main executable that we can even launch. Now, one way to launch it would be to just go to the terminal, so just hit it's Ctrl+Grave to actually open the terminal, and I can go to bin, and here we can see the main executable. I can launch it and I'm gonna get hello world. That's one way to do it, but I want you to be able to launch it through the editor itself, so you don't have to execute any commands in the terminal really to actually launch this. So how do we do that? Well, VS Code can actually do this. Besides the tasks, we can hit here F5 to actually launch the project. Now, again, VS Code doesn't know anything about what we want to do. It doesn't even know that it's actually C. It just kind of assumes that, oh, maybe it's actually C, and we may want to launch it here. But it doesn't know. So here we can select C++ GDB. It's important to select GDB because that is the debugger that is available for Linux. We don't have the Windows debugger here, so of course we want to select this one, and here we want to actually select the default configuration, and if you click that, it's going to automatically again generate a file called launch.json in this VS Code or .VS Code folder, and this guy is going to be very important. Now, the most important thing here to change is really this program argument, and this program is the actual executable that you should launch. Now, this should be in relationship to which file you have opened. We'll get to that in a bit. So here, I'm going to change it to whatever we have here in the tasks. So I'm going to simply copy this output folder that we get. It's really representing this main executable, and just paste it there, and that's really it. Now, if we hit F5, we can see that the program launches, and in the terminal we do get hello world. Amazing, that's really nice, and it's working. There's only one problem. If we, for example, don't have the executable already built, right? So for example, I just removed it. Let's say we didn't build anything. If I hit F5 and want to launch it, we're gonna get an error saying that, okay, main doesn't exist. What do you want to do here, right? And what we have to tell Visual Studio Code is to actually compile the program before trying to launch. So we have to go in our launch.json file here and change it here at the pre-launch task property. And this property should be the exact same name as you have in the task. So this is a task that's going to launch before, well, launching the actual configuration. So here we can go to the tasks.json and copy the label. This has to be the same as the one that we paste in there. So just copy and paste this here. And now, even though we don't have a main.exe or main executable really in here, if we launch this, it's going to first compile and then try to launch it. And now it actually does launch. And that's really all there is to it. Now, if you try to, for example, debug the program, if I have here, let's say an A variable, that's 5, I can just add a breakpoint, launch this, and we should break at that breakpoint. And we can see here on the right, you're probably going to see it on the left, that yes, A is 5, argc is 1, and argv has my path here, my path to the executable. And if I hit continue, it's going to finish execution. So that works beautifully. Now, if you have multiple main files, if you really want to have a main file for example, for every single exercise you're doing, well, you can do that. You can actually create here, let's say main2.c, and let's copy everything we have here in main, and I'm gonna say here hello world 2, just to distinguish between the two. If I try to launch this with F5, you're gonna see that it compiles and it does launch our main2.c, and inside our folder structure we do get here a main2 executable. So that's perfectly fine, it works amazing. Now, if you want to actually have multiple files compiled at the same time, you can, but it's a bit more tricky with just this setup. You're probably going to have to use makefiles or whatnot. But if you want to have just 2 files, you can still do it. It's just that you have to set tasks.json. You're going to have to add another file in here. So here, this is going to be replaced with main.c. And if you have another source file, let's say example.c for whatever reason, and let's say we create this example.c, and I don't know, let's define here a function. And if we, for example, add a printf here, hello from example, let's say, and we try to call it in main.c, it's a bit more trickier. You can call it, right? But you're gonna have to first also tell it that it exists. I'm gonna have to say here void function, just the declaration itself. And now if I try to launch this, I should get that hello from example call here. And that's really all there is to launching C or C++ files in Linux in Visual Studio Code. In the next video, I'm going to take a look at how I work with Visual Studio Code and C, because it's a bit more different than this. But if you're on Linux, know that it's actually pretty easy, and this workflow actually works very, very well. If you do have any questions, leave them down in the comments below or on our Discord server. Again, all the files that I have talked about here are going to be available on our website, link in the description below. All right, take care. Bye.